Okay, everyone. Well, Stacy Garrop is joining us, and I'm so happy that she has decided to let us try this crazy project in trying to record and premiere this piece. And she wrote this beautiful piece. I think by now you've all had the chance to look at the score and or your parts and listen to the MIDI that Stacy created, and together with a click track that Svet put together. Anyway, so this is a really beautiful piece. I'll tell you very briefly why we decided to do this. We felt that we wanted to find a way to keep the parts of the festival that we could, that were related to the time that we live in. And this piece is, of course, very important as a historical document, on an artistic historical document that tells about Susan B. Anthony's work and the passing of the 19th Amendment and all of this work. So we decided to do this piece, and I was very excited that Stacy said, "Oh yeah, sure. Why don't we try this with the entire orchestra?" So, Stacy, welcome to Cabrillo and online orchestra virtual meeting. And would you like to tell us a few words about your piece? We always start, actually, the very first rehearsal. We start with the composer telling us a little bit about their piece.
Sure. First of all, I was at Cabrillo about 5 years ago. I absolutely loved working with you guys in the past, and I can't tell you how excited I was and am when Ellen and Cristi asked if I would write a piece for you again. So just thank you, everybody, for taking this crazy project on in this new form. I can tell you, when I wrote it, I didn't know it was going to be in this way. And so there are, I think for the most part, it's laying out quite well for this structure. But if you do find problems with your parts, can you please feel free to email me? I'm mail@garrop.com. When I was composing this piece, the thing that was the most important is the text. The fact that we have a narrator, we don't know if the narrator will or will not be able to read music. So that was a consideration as I wrote it. So I began to finally realize this was like writing a concerto for a voice, where it's not necessarily being sung, but just not knowing how much of a heavy orchestration to be using depending on situations of miking and things. So that's why a lot of you are not seeing a lot of, especially the brass, you don't get a lot to play until measure 280. I wanted to make sure you all had a moment to really shine. So measures 280 to 414 pretty much is where you're all going full blast all the time. And this thing only involves about 5 themes. Well, okay, that's quite a few, but I end up mixing those up in different ways, and they all come back over and over again in very tonal ways. So this was all in an effort to make sure the focus stays on the text. So thank you again, everybody.
Great. Svet, Svet has been so important from the very beginning, actually, of this project, and I don't think we could have started talking about this without Svet. So Svet, do you want to share a little bit your thoughts about recording it and talking a little bit about those technical issues?
Hi everyone. Cristi, I'm happy to, and if you wanted to, we could also leave all of what I have to say toward the end of this, where, say, if Stacy or you have the choice to also leave the conversation, you can, and if you'd like to stay, we could. I'm happy to also talk now. Did you want to? How did you want to proceed?
Well, I figured let's do this. Let's talk a little bit about the technical issues right now, so that everyone knows what to expect, or what is possible to do and how to do it, so that we have a unified look and sound. And then after that, maybe Stacy will go through the score, right, and just talk a little bit about artistically what you have in mind. yeah. So Svet, I think maybe you can start.
Okay, sure. Hi everyone. I hope everybody's doing okay. So good to see you guys. I miss you all. I wanted to ask you, first of all, the click track was created based on the MIDI that Stacy created, and we tried to just emulate as much as possible everything that we heard in the MIDI. So before we talk about anything else, did you have any issues or questions about the click track and the MIDI that you heard? That file that basically is for you to record with, that has the click and the orchestra at the same time. It has some subdivisions. It has some cues. Did you feel like anything was confusing in there, or there was something that you were concerned with? I guess I'm just gonna scroll, make sure if I see anybody raise their hand. I guess no one's saying anything. Okay, I'm gonna take that as a maybe. Okay, so basically this click is what we're hoping to use for everyone to record along. The reason that you hear everything you hear is very particular. Number one, we wanted to make sure that everyone can hear the tuning of the orchestra. And so that's why you're hearing also some of the MIDI on the bottom. We understand that that's a bit, mechanical as a computer sounds, but that would help us be in tune. Just so everything we're about to discuss will be sent to everyone also in the document. So you'll get sort of like a overview of everything we chatted of. But the tuning, Stacy confirmed, is 440. So what you're hearing is A equals 440. Just so you know, anytime when there's subdivisions that you're hearing, we did that because we wanted to make sure that anyone not seeing, a real conductor, in this case, can just know what to expect, how to proceed in accelerandi, ritardandi. And other than that, we just try to keep it as simple as possible. I am going to upload 3 different tracks. I want you to know of that same recording click track that I think are going to be used by anyone in a different way for recording. And I wanted to talk about it just for a second because it's click track related. They're going to be left ear only with everything you hear, right ear only with everything that you need to hear, or both ears. So in other words, if you're recording and you want to have one ear open, you can choose which one, and you can still have the complete piece play in your other ear with everything else, click track, etc. And if you prefer to have both of your ears covered with headphones, then you can have that option too. So I have a document here that we basically prepared. I'll just go over that, and later on, I'll make sure that, again, we'll have question and answer also. I'll send this in an email, or Lyndsey will. So tuning is A equal 440. One thing I would love to ask everybody is to help us basically sync this together later. And for that, I ask that everybody, literally, when you start recording, even if you don't play from the beginning, you start recording from the very beginning of the piece. And there's two measures in the opening that are empty that I literally say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Please make sure that you say with me the number 3 of the first measure and the numbers 1 and 2 of the second empty measure. That would help me line this up just generally, just so I know where you are, especially for people who are not playing at all for a while. That would give me a relatively good idea where to begin, and I'll fine tune it from there. So feel free to literally say that with me. That would really help. I spoke about is just want to make sure to reiterate, one of the things we're trying to avoid is when we're recording ourselves, click track is so penetrating as a sound that if you have, say, if you're using one earphone and the other one is open, but the click is playing, it's such a, tingy, sort of almost like relentlessly consistent, attention seeking sound that it can easily get picked up and get recorded as well. So please make sure that you either pick left, right, or left only or right only version of the recording click track, or that you basically are very, carefully listening to make sure you're not picking up your click track. Also, the click track is being very loudly playing in your ears. A microphone can also pick it up and record it. So please just listen for that when you're, before you're submitting something, listen for that. Make sure that you're not recording the click track. That's really hard to take out. Let's see what else I have here. For your recording location, one thing that you may see a lot of the times is that people are kind of recording in front of walls, and it's a pretty plain, sort of background what they have. Generally speaking, visually, I think that having, not a lot of pattern behind you, definitely not stripes because it doesn't look really well on video. That would be great. However, I highly recommend that you choose a place that's actually rather dead sound-wise rather than echoey. Because if you have echo, what happens is it's eventually translates into the sound. And when one tries to take that out, it takes away the resonance of the instrument. And otherwise, it's easier to retain the resonance and just amplify with reverb. So if you have the choice, please try to record in a place that is not as resonant, but it's rather just a little bit more damp and a little deadish, actually. Definitely not right next to a wall, because your instrument bounces off that and it sounds echoey. We're going to send all of this in information. So I'm looking at notes right now. So with regards to recording equipment, I just want to tell you, this is really complicated because everybody probably has a very different setup at home. Maybe some people are really comfortable and technically savvy and have a lot more than others. And it's perfectly okay not to feel fully comfortable. I want to make sure that you know that if you need me, I'm happy to schedule a call with anyone and just literally even just like help you set something up or check out something you've recorded and just try to help as much as I can. But generally speaking, there's two ways that people will end up recording. There'll be people who have, very good or sort of, devices that will do very well both with video and audio, and people who may only have a cell phone and say, look, how do I use this device to record? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give suggestions here overall, and if you have questions, again, you're welcome to speak here also, or just hit me later. We can talk together and specifically address this.
I think the next step is just to address a couple of things about the music itself. Of course, the MIDI doesn't really do the piece the justice, and I think that speaks for itself. We don't have to explain that at all. Stacy has described the piece to me, and I will let you say about this, Stacy. But my feeling is that, well, not my feeling. The reality is that she is very, very specific in the score and in the parts about exactly the kind of sound that she's after in terms of non-vibrato, how much vibrato, what are the dynamics, and of course some of this stuff we will be able to manipulate as well with in the mixing of the recordings that we receive. So, but in terms of the expressive nature of the piece, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but overall, you want this to, unless it's written as a non-vibrato note that is supposed to be either like a harmonic or something like this, you do want this to be warm and generous and to feel like it is basically the opposite of what's in the MIDI.
Right. What I can tell you is the way that I write, I'm a very visual composer. So I, in my head, I see Susan B. Anthony walking up to a podium to speak. The whole beginning section, which lasts all the way to B, is where she's feeling a little fragile. She's starting this speech. And this is actually a lecture she gave on a circuit for a while after she had gotten arrested for voting. But that whole quality of feeling fragile should permeate all the instruments. And that same idea comes back at the very end. So it's like the whole piece can be collapsed down to ABA. I'm a very structural composer too, so overall form always matters to me, and tension and relaxation. So when you get to M, letter M on page 43 of the main score, you'll see it's the same material. So that bookends the piece. So that's where, Cristi, I would say have everybody play with a little less vibrance. But then as she warms up and starts discussing her topic, that's where you really start to open up and let the sound shift. That said, the only other spot where this changes is at letter F. So we actually had to put in this weird 7/8 measure in measure 181 in order to get the cutoff right. Then that's a little odd thing, but it's to make the MIDI work. When you get to measure 182, this is the one spot in the way I've depicted the piece musically where Susan B. Anthony is a little bit unsure of what she's saying. And yet, if you read through the text, I think that's going to be the most important thing to understand, is looking to see what is she talking about at any given moment and understanding how that is permeating into the music. Does that help a bit, Cristi?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and you bring up a very good point, which is we should be very careful, especially because you won't be able to hear each other as you're making the recordings. Please be very mindful of the length of notes that you're holding to the end, so that they're not bleeding over a bar line or things like this, where in a normal setting where you would hear each other, you would naturally release together. So now we're just going to have to rely on exactly the timing, which is why the 7/8 bar, this is how it was born, to address this issue. But I would say that every time there is a long note, and every time there is a phrase that ends with a long note, we just have to be careful about releasing it at the right time that it's written. Yes, so Stacy, yeah.
The
Please.
question that we might want to address is something like in measure 212, where now the violas have this staccatoed quarter note.
Right, correct.
And our tempo is at 69 for the quarter note. So in my head, I really usually think of a staccato as half the note value, but it could even be shorter depending on what you would hear as your vision of it, Cristi.
Yeah, so I imagine that as like an eighth note, but with a lot of purpose, So then it's not a short eighth note, but it's a weighted eighth note, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, that works.
You just want the rhythmic drive from us there, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Cristi, so about the bleeding into the other measures and not going over the bar line, but does this also mean, maybe I'm reading too much into this, about dampening the strings or something, or just no residual sound over the bar line, or is it just cut off the entire sound?
I think, well, Svet, can you chime into that? My instinct is to say that we should not let the strings resonate beyond the length of the note, the way that it's written, right, Svet?
Try to play as you would normally play naturally. I feel
right.
like,
Okay.
we will definitely have to work on this afterwards, but I would say try to play like you would normally play.
All right.
What's interesting about that spot is that it's a blunt cut. It's the one spot in the whole piece.
Right.
Where the music has been going along one track, and suddenly she changes, her mind switches to a different line of reasoning or different thought, and that's why we're trying to compensate for that.
Yeah. I think overall, my only sort of artistic directive is I really want the piece to sound really beautiful. The way that, even the MIDI sounds quite good, but I think if we can make it really expressive and really beautiful. So I know this will not come easy the first or the second time, or maybe it does, I don't know, but that you do with a click track. But I don't want it to sound like we're just really painfully trying to be together with a click track, and I think if we do it with that in mind, it will have, I would rather it sound beautiful and have the right feeling and not be 100% perfect than be 100% perfect and just sound like we're trying to play together.
Right. The only thing to be aware of is the spot that we're talking about right now. This is on page 20. It's F. Let rehearsal F as in Frank. This is the one spot really in the piece where things are acting a little not so beautiful. So there's a couple moments where she's questioning whether or not women are considered to be citizens or persons. And so I totally agree with Cristi. Really make it beautiful in the spots that are lush and romantic. But in spots like this, the idea is to be rather sterile. And Bharat has some great solos in here, but he represents the somberness of the situation. And so whenever she speaks, you'll sometimes hear him pitching in.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks. Any of the places where we have all these tenutos, is the intention that there should be sort of oppressive sound at the beginning of the note?
Stacy?
Yeah, the tenuto, in my language, if the tenuto is on an isolated note, it tends to be with a little emphasis. And if it's with notes after it that all have tenuti, then I would like both emphasis and a slight separation.
Okay. Ava, you raised your hand.
Yes, Stacy, I'm wondering if you have a particular way you would like the brass, or at least the trombones, to exhale through the horn.
Yes. Good question. I'm sorry. Do you have a measure number for me quickly?
195.
195. Thank you.
Sorry, 196.
What can? Yeah, it's in a couple of spots. What you might try doing is exhaling with like a s or sh sound. And if you, I'm sorry, I didn't actually put it in here, but whatever you find makes the most amount of noise.
That helps. I know sometimes people just sort of, oh, and then you can't hear it. So you want,
Right.
okay, cool.
The S or SH.
S or SH, cool.
So you want the sound to be strong, like so we can really hear the exhale as a strong sound, right? Forrest, did you have the same question?
Same
or
question. Same question.
Okay.
And to start with a nice, so really attack that beginning, and then we hear that drop away.
Okay. Lillian, did you raise your hand?
Hi, the accents at H and at L, do you want those to more have like depth, or do you want that to be like a hard attack on the front of the note?
Stacy?
That's a good question. At H, I guess I really want it on just the attack. This is a fast tempo, and so we don't have a lot of time to really let things gestate. So attack and move right along. Later on, though, in the piece, as things are getting broader, like at L, I would say that should be option number 2, where it's a little more with the emphasis. Does that make sense? It's how do can we interpret the accent with the broadly? So in my language, when you see fortissimos, fortes or fortissimo, especially fortissimo, that means this is the most important moment of the piece. So L is the height of everything. It's where she's seeing in the future where all these women can vote in her head. So if we can make that really the pinnacle of the piece.
Yeah. One small thing about this one, and if I understand Stacy's music correct, and please correct me, Stacy, if I'm wrong, but let's avoid making the accents fortepianos, so that especially in a melodic line or in a climactic moment, so that it and I think maybe this will refer to your question, Lillian, as well. In those places, the accent is just an emphasis of the importance of the note, rather than on technical articulation that then will decay the sound immediately after, right? Sorry, Stacy,
I think there
correct?
might be a few forte pianos in here, but otherwise, please don't do that. Yes,
but
yes, you are correct.
You write them in where you do one fortepiano, right?
Yes.
Okay, Emily, you raised your hand.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to ask also about some articulation, like at letter J, do you want separation between your phrases? Because you have phrase marks there, and then later on, like with the octaves, do you want that defined?
Are you a string player?
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
I'm piano.
piano.
Sorry.
Yeah, what I'm really looking for, if everybody can look at the full score of J, or sorry, this is page 235. It's really what the piano and harp are doing is the real phrasing. But I'm always trying to compensate for how I know you're producing sound on your instrument. So that's why string players, sometimes you don't have as many slurs as the woodwinds but does that help to know that that's who you're focusing on to get the phrasing?
So you do want a separation between each phrase mark, a slight one?
Oh, I
Like
see. I'm sorry.
slight definition?
Not really.
Oh.
Not at this point in the piece, but just know that I am thinking of things in groups of 2 or 3 measures, or 1 to 3 measures, depending on how it's slurred.
Okay.
Hey, Stacy. At letter K, 365 for the cello, and I think there may be other people, but we have unmeasured tremolo. Does that mean that you want us to vary the speed as we go about the tremolo, like get fast or slow, or do you just want it various speeds? Or
Actually, thank you for asking a question. I just want it to be as fast as possible so it doesn't sound like it's even 16th notes.
Okay, thank you.
Bharat has raised his hand. Yes, sir, we're listening.
Hi, hi everybody. Quickly, if there are any little details that don't get addressed in the things that we talk about here or the document that you make, we can check in kind of section by section, yes, so that we'll know, for instance, with the clarinets to do the clarinety things that we do the same way. That's the plan, yes, I think. Well, that helps. I assume that'll be good.
Yeah, I think that might be the easiest way to speed up this rather than So I think if there are questions that are specific to the clarinet section, if you feel like you need guidance from Stacy or from please feel free to email us. If not, we're happy for you to make the decision. That is clarinetti. Okay. All right. Well, the hardest thing about a Zoom meeting is saying goodbye. So Lyndsey, you're in charge of, if there are no other questions, Lyndsey, you're in charge of this part.
I want to thank everybody for coming, and I will follow up with next steps and get a couple other Zoom meetings scheduled for technical follow-up. And shoot me an email if you have any questions or concerns about anything. And we're really excited and grateful for your participation in this really wonderful project. It's going to be amazing. Thank you so much. And take care and be well.
Okay, cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you all so
Stay
much.
safe, stay safe.
So great to see everyone.
Thanks.
Wow.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.